We're under the hood, flying our Cirrus SR-22 at 2,000 feet on a 060 heading. We've turned the flight director on, as shown by the command bars of the magenta triangle. Our flight director is set to heading mode, and our heading is bugged at 060 degrees, and altitude mode, which is set at 2,000 feet. The autopilot is not on. We're hand flying, but the flight director is still guiding us to hold heading and altitude. If we change pitch and roll with our flight controls to set that green and yellow aircraft symbol so it fits right underneath the magenta command bars, we'll stay on. We'd like to shoot a practice ILS approach at nearby Baltimore, runway 33 right, to show how to fly a precision approach when using a flight director like this. We'll set the localizer frequency into our nav 1, flip it active, notice the identifier comes up for the localizer, IBWI, and then we'll hit the CDI soft key to switch to tracking the green needles of the localizer raw data. All the while, we're continuing to hold heading and altitude by keeping the aircraft symbol snugly beneath the command bars. Notice our power on the top left of the MFD, currently set at 50%. We'll want to turn to intercept the localizer for runway 33 right, so we'll turn our heading bug to 360. The magenta command bars immediately indicate a left turn. We'll match them to get a standard rate turn towards our desired heading. The command bars will roll back to the right when we can go wings level on our new 360 heading. We're on course to intercept the localizer, so let's activate approach mode on the flight director by hitting the APR hard key so the command bars track the localizer and glide slope. At first, the command bars don't change. Both the localizer and glide slope indicators are fully deflected still, so we're still in heading and altitude hold mode, as shown by HDG and ALT in green. Note though that localizer and glide slope modes are armed with the letters LOC and GS now appearing. The green localizer needle comes alive and the flight director activates loc mode. The command bars indicate a slight turn to capture the localizer. As always, our job is to manage pitch and bank to keep the aircraft position on that magenta triangle. Soon, the green diamond of the glide slope indicator comes alive. We can start to slow down now by reducing power. Notice that as we do, the flight director requires a slightly higher pitch attitude to compensate for the loss of speed. We'll hold 2,000 feet until it comes to center. We can configure with flaps just as the diamond approaches center. GS mode goes active and the flight director no longer holds altitude, but will have us pitch down to follow the glide slope. In order to stay on the localizer and glide slope, we need to manage bank and pitch to hold those magenta command bars just as we've been doing. Let's say we've accidentally gotten too low on the approach. The glide slope is above us and the command bars require us to pitch up. We do so and recapture the glide slope. Now let's reduce power and pitch up so that we get too high and too slow. The flight director now wants us to pitch down to recapture. When we do that, we're back on glide slope. However, with our lower power setting, holding that glide slope causes us to be slower. We'd like to fly this approach at 100 knots, so if we're on glide slope, we'll need to increase power. Now, both our speed and glide slope look good again. It's important not to get fixated on the flight director. You should still be referencing all your primary instruments to track trends so you can anticipate what the aircraft will need to correct, instead of just reacting to changes on the flight director. We'll adjust pitch to the command bars to hold glide slope and adjust power if needed to manage speed. Notice this is the opposite of how an approach may be flown without a flight director in some aircraft. We now have automation helping us with our descent rate, but it can't do it with power since it doesn't control the throttle. It can only tell us to change pitch. When we hit decision altitude, we'll have a lookout and configure for a landing on runway 33 right. The presence of automation like the flight director assists us in holding the glide slope, so our method of maintaining descent and speed changes just a bit, but fundamentally we're still managing our energy in the form of airspeed and altitude to maintain a stable precision approach.